Welcome back to Burning the Red Shirt. This is episode 16. I'm your host, Zach Tao. Again, with me is Andrew Katz and Chris K. You guys doing all right?
Good, man.
Doing great, man.
Big pre-show vibes. Got a little bit more energy to the table than I thought I was going to have. Ready to rock.
Definitely talking marketing and
back to the day, blending the day job and the night job.
Exactly. All right, so we're running a little late, so we'll kind of try to keep this as brief as we can, but we have a few topics we want to discuss. One of the ones that I noticed in the Discord was
the bot.
No, we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about supplemental drafts and what a good strategy is. I know leagues are all different, dynasty leagues are all different sizes, different roster sizes, all that. But in general, when you go into a supplemental draft, are you drafting like best player available, or are you going to like, I need a quarterback, so I'm going to take the best quarterback available? But there might not be a great quarterback, but you need one. What's your strategy in terms of that, Chris?
I didn't know if Andrew wanted that one first or not.
I don't know if he did or neither.
You always luck into like some guys that are just like absolute studs, and it's more just like a preference of what you want. So like I think a lot of people are going to see, obviously Cameron Ward is available, and as much as like I hate on him, like I think it makes a lot of sense in Dynasty, like a ton of sense. It's just more the 1 year stuff that I don't really like. But like also, for instance, I think it's our league, like Trig is available, Miles Price is available, Cameron Ward's available. Like you have a lot of options, and then there's a couple like, there's two really relevant freshmen in Luther Burden and Nick Singleton. So like that should in theory be available and playing for 3 years. I think overall, like I'm not going to take a senior with an early pick. Those guys always seem to really slide. So I think, like for instance, Mac Hippenhammer is a name in our league, and he's like a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick, and I think he could be there at the end of the first of pick 20 to 30, just because people love going young.
Yeah, that was another point I was going to make. So when you go into a supplemental draft, like the grabbing freshmen or like sophomores that have 2, 3, 4 years of eligibility, it's very appealing. But at some point, you got to try to win the league. And if there's a senior there that will, like, let's just say Cameron Ward, and you grab him, like you almost have to grab him, in my opinion, if he's going to be a 30+ point, 40 point quarterback.
Well, he's a mix of like both, right? Like Ward could do really well this year and have, like think about last year, Trevion Henderson was like one of the top guys, and he's going to be very relevant for 3 years or 2, and then he sits out a year. So like you're going to get that, right? Like Luther Burden seems like a guy that's going to be very good for 3 years. Same with Nick Singleton. He's not going to be like Trevion level, but it feels like he's very likely to be a similar type boat. But yeah, I don't know. I think some years you just get no brainers. It just depends on how early the pick you have.
Andrew, you got any thoughts?
I would say generally I try and approach supplemental drafts and thinking about it in terms of just doing it. Like I'll try and mock it up and think about how when it eventually gets to me, which is inevitably the back half of the first round, right? Because my team's been good the previous year. When it gets to me, what's the board going to look like? And I feel like consistently, I always overestimate people's propensity for actually taking players who are going to see the field sooner than later. Like people are super into freshmen, generally speaking, and even with a class like this class, I don't know. Like I feel like I talk about it all the time on the pod how I'm just not really the best authority when it comes to freshmen, but I don't know. The sense I get is that there's nothing really super interesting or crazy about this class, generally speaking, relative to some of the other ones we have. But even with that being the case, I would think that more freshmen will go in the first round than the consensus would be if you tried to put together a supplemental mock, just because people get on the clock and they get freshman fever. Right. But I mean, I don't know. I kind of break it down into like 3 different parts. Supplemental draft, like there's your first round where it's going to be, well, I think it's probably going to be mostly comprised of elite freshmen, and then players who, based on ADP, are just going super high. Cameron Ward, Miles Price, people of that ilk. That's probably, I would say, your first slash second tier. I almost want to put like the guys who are going to be like the immediate producers and like they're in that second tier behind the freshmen, because the freshmen always just seem to go higher in the ones that I'm a part of. And then everything after that, like it's everything. It's just like throwing. It seems like people just kind of throw paint at the board and see what happens. Like there's really no rhyme or reason. And I think that third part is where it's kind of the most fun, and you can try and find really cool and interesting things.
It's funny, like in supplemental drafts, I know in years past, like I'll have my board of all these guys I'm targeting, and like I'm kind of torn on a guy. Like, all right, it's like second or third round. I'm like, do I grab him now? He may not be there the next round. And then I get to the next round and he's still there. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm just the only one who is keeping tabs on this guy. And then I inevitably wait too long, and then he goes like fifth round. I'm like, oh man, I should have grabbed him when I thought about it. But I know when I'm setting up for the supplemental draft, and we actually were chatting about it the other day, Chris. Like I look at like what I need first. Like I say, if I'm really light at running back, I'll go like look at the running backs available first, and I'll kind of see, okay, there's nothing really there. So now I just take best player available. I think if there's a running back that, or whatever position I need, and he's at the top, he's a top 5 pick, then, and I have first or second pick, I take him, no hesitation. But if you're where Andrew's picking like at 15 to 20, then you kind of just, you kind of have a guy that you know is not, you're not going to take a guy that's going to be a top 10 pick because you know he's not going to fall to you. You know, like Cameron Ward, he's probably not going to be there back half of the first round. You know, I'm just speaking from our league, but that's like a surefire starter at quarterback in a pretty good situation. I know we talk about him, and we'll talk about him a little later actually, but I'll save that. But I think it's just different ways you can approach prepping for it. I guess it also depends on what you've lost too. Like if you have a team that was a young team last year and you don't have much to replace, you can take more chances in the draft versus like if you don't have a really good roster, you need to fill it with guys that are going to play and contribute now.
I think there's a balance, right? There's college fantasy is so crazy different than NFL. Like you're going to have plenty of opportunity to find old guys in the middle of the season and young guys, right? Like if you do a really good job in the waiver wire, you don't have to worry about drafting because you can still find enough stuff.
Unless you have 3 pickups a season, but we'll
I think overall, like just if you're looking young, you just take the guy that you feel is the best, no matter what the position is, right? Like if when DJU and Bryce Young were freshmen, like about to be freshmen, right? That was like a no-brainer, right? Like you just take one, like whatever one falls to you, right? But like I think this year, you have your Burden, you have Singleton. Like once those couple top guys go, it's just like, okay, well, who do I think is the best? Doesn't matter. The leagues are so deep, right? Like in our league, I drafted Jordan Addison, Marvin Mims, Booty, and I still could use flex help. Like I just nailed 3 receivers and I still need flex help. So like I wouldn't worry too much about like, well, now I have too many receivers. Like you're never going to run into that situation. If you do, you can trade them like Andrew loves doing, getting heavy on one position, then trading them for the other. So
he likes to corner the market, and then he ships them off to like build his team.
Although I will say, and I think Mike Bainbridge would agree, quarterback, if your tiebreaker would be quarterback. Like I think if you're going to win a championship, you almost always have elite quarterback play. So if you're going to think about a guy that you're going to go young with, and it's between this guy and that guy, one's the quarterback, you go with the quarterback.
Like I think of like Vernon Adams that year he transferred to Oregon, right? Like it was a no-brainer. He was going top 5 in that system. It may not have worked out exactly. Like
the process was right.
Yeah, it was just didn't
The hit rates
necessarily.
are awful on these things. I posted one of our supplemental drafts from like 2016, and it was
Oh,
like literally one player was decent out of 22. Like, let's not get crazy. None of us know what the heck we're doing to that much of an extent. So you just take the best guess at it, and you're almost, you're going to be wrong anyway, like more than likely wrong. So you might as well just not
What I
overthink it.
also think's funny is, especially in our league, you have the handful of guys that like only go freshmen. Like there's no, you know who I'm talking about. Like they strictly go freshmen. They're not taking upperclassmen until like 6th, 7th, 8th round, where they're getting guys that are still available, and you're like, wow, how is he still available? But everybody went so young early on, and then like I think guys just kind of slipped through the cracks. There's so many players that they may have been average, maybe a little above average last year, and now have a chance to be a upper tiered player given the right situation. But it just depends on your league mates too. Like everybody in the league is different, has a different philosophy on what's important. Do you want youth for longevity, or do you want production today? And I think, like you said, there's a balance that you have to try to find, especially in the dynasty.
There's also a lot of value in it, right? Like I brought up back Hippenhammer, like he's like a 6th round pick right now in best balls, which is a lot. Like that's a very good pick, right? It's like receiver 15 or 18 or something like that. But if you get like Luther Burden, you're going to get 3 years of like, let's say 11th round value, then like 6th and 5th round value, right? Like there's 3 seasons that go into it. So I can understand why people like going young. It's just all of a sudden your hit rate becomes that much lower.
Yeah. Andrew, you got any more thoughts on this? If not, we can move on if you want.
I think that like when you have deep rosters for Dynasty, the supplemental drafts become a lot more interesting because like in our league, our rosters aren't that deep, but in the back half of the draft, I think I'm largely just trying to find producers because our league isn't deep enough where you can just stack endless. For instance, like one of the things I like to do in a lot of leagues is try and find quarterbacks that are a year away from starting, but I really believe in. But our league doesn't really allow for that too much because our benches aren't that deep, even though it's not.
I think 35 total players. I think on our.
Is it that many?
I think it's 35, and it wasn't that many. I think I just recently upped it to 35.
Really? Last year, I feel like we played like
others
28
for
or something
sure.
like that. Like we only had like 10, 12 player benches or something, right?
I think when we started, it was like 12 players on the bench.
Yeah.
We had the 3 registered spots.
So when your bench is looking like that, you can't really get too interesting in terms of trying to.
So the new BTR Dynasty League that we started, it's 45 players on the roster. So a little deeper than the one that we're in now.
Are we doing defense?
What did we decide? I think so.
Probably.
I think
I mean, this winning edge league we're in, or I'm in. I don't know if you're in. I think you're in an Andrew. Are you?
I'm not in.
Yeah, we take defenses.
It's like literally.
QBs. Yeah, go ahead.
You have like everybody and their brother. Like everybody is on your bench, which just makes it a different type of league. It's just challenging in its own right.
So we do 2 QBs, 3 running backs, 4 receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 flex, and a defense. So the starting lineup is pretty deep. 14 starters, and then you'll have 31 on the bench. So a lot deeper than the one we're in currently, but I guess we'll see how that goes. We'll probably start that draft here probably the next couple weeks, but I will keep the Discord up to date. And if you haven't joined the Discord and you're listening to this, please do. It should be on the pod's Twitter account at BTR_pod. If it's not, I or Chris will tweet it out shortly. But I want to go ahead and move to it's a surprise little segment I kind of came up with. These 2 guys don't know anything about it other than that it's a surprise segment. And I want to do, it's basically an either or. Pick who you think will be the best of the 2 in terms of fantasy production. points per game mainly. Think of it that way.
2022.
Yeah, this upcoming season. So they're all three pairings are quarterbacks. I didn't think way too hard on this, so forgive me. But Cameron Rising versus Stetson Bennett.
Are you trying to trigger me, Seth?
Well, I picked two quarterbacks that would kind of, they would have some, I don't want to say controversy, that's not the word, but have some talking
Some
points.
juice to them.
Yeah,
I mean, Cameron Rising is like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Am I overthinking that?
I like Stetson, of course.
I feel like Stetson's way underrated in terms of fantasy. I really do. Like, I think people like say, oh no, he's not going to throw it enough to get a lot of points. But I think if you go look at his numbers, like they were.
I tried to make an argument in Heise's best ball league or dynasty league the other day that Stetson Bennett is on the same tier as Bryce Young when it comes to fantasy. My argument was that Bryce had 9 games of 22.5 or more fantasy points last year, and Stetson started 2 less games than him and had 6 such games. So he really was just 1 game away from being on the same tier.
So I'm going to steal your segment here. Did you guys see Chris Moxley's tweet about like startable weeks versus non-startable weeks?
Yeah.
I thought it was, I mean, that kind of goes with it, right? Like ultimately, if you're not, it just goes so much deeper than just like yes or no, because there's just way too much that plays into it. And like, how do you know after the season when you should start a guy versus when you like, is this defense really, did you know they were going to be elite in week 3? Like that type of thing. But it's kind of like that, right? Like startable weeks make sense. And if Stetson Bennett is like, very good in 7 weeks, that's very valuable for those 7 weeks. But I mean, I'm not going to get to that area. That's just
I'm on the Utah bandwagon this year though. Like I have decent amount of money on them to win Pac-12. I've been drafting Tavion Thomas and Rising in lots of best balls. I think they're gonna score lots of points. When Rising took over as quarterback last year, the offense ticked up. Have you watched him play? Their offense is so strange for all the reasons you would expect, right? So first of all, they do like my favorite college football thing a lot of the time, where it's just a 2-man game between the running back and quarterback, and one of them's going to do something cool pretty much every single play. It's just a matter of who it is. So you could like legitimately stack them both and like take down a tournament with it, which is like the most, in my opinion, the most fun way to do it, right? The QB running back stack that is not really ever going to be over-owned on any slate of significant size, because like people don't really think that way, right? They're either trying to attack the run game with the running back or the passing game with the quarterback and receivers. But I think Utah, like the way their offense functions, allows for that. Similar to like with Cincy with Ritter and Ford in the past. But their offense is weird though, and like because they just, all they do with respect to the passing game is check down to running backs and tight ends. Like the receivers are just kind of out there for funsies. But it's not even like the Oregon thing in my opinion, where the passing game just blows. Like it's efficient and effective in Utah, and their tight ends are hitting explosive plays to the tight ends, and they can actually do real damage in the passing game. It's just how they do it is super kind of strange.
So just on a statistical comparison, I'm using the scoring setup in the Dynasty League, but Cameron Rising averaged 22.74 points per game, and Stetson Bennett averaged 21.74. But I believe it takes in the national championship game into account.
There's lots of weird idiosyncrasies with that.
But
right?
I'm just saying, like they're not as lopsided as you may think.
Yeah.
Like the fantasy circles are going to say, yes, clearly Cameron Rising. And I would probably tend to agree.
Yeah.
But I don't think Stetson Bennett's a bad alternative to him.
No, I've taken Stetson at the end of a couple drafts, mostly for homerism purposes, right? But I mean, as like my QB7 or whatever, like I think he's going to pop into my lineup a few times throughout the year. He'll throw up some 30-point games, and optimally, it's in a week where I actually need him to do so.
I think there's a time and a place for him, right? Like, there's definitely, if you take quarterbacks with a ton of upside, right? Like, if you go Cunningham and Plumlee early, makes a lot of sense to go a guy like Stetson, who you know is going to start 12 games, and he's going to have the random 5 touchdown game. He's going to produce decently. He can run a little bit. Like, so, I think there's a time and a place for him, right? Like, I wouldn't pick Stetson if I pick, some typical high floor quarterbacks at the beginning, because it's like, realistically, when is that ever going to happen, right? But like, Malik Cunningham's going to go for 60 points, or he's going to go for 7. And if he goes for 7, it's nice to have that fallback of Stetson. And I think if you're going to take high upside guys, you need to take someone at the end that is a surefire starter that's not going to be pushed. And that's Stetson for sure. And I have seen, Andrew, one of the last 2 best balls you did take Stetson, and I chuckled to myself.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move to the second pairing that I've picked, and this one has already been discussed on Twitter. JT Daniels versus Cameron Ward.
So the criteria that you established for picking one of them is probably not the most conducive to debate in the sense of raw fantasy output or raw average fantasy points, right?
I'm just saying a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, factor in ADP, and it's much more interesting.
Yeah. But I didn't go that next level into it, Andrew. I just
So we can make the debate whatever we want it to be. And exactly. I choose to make it to insert the ADP variable into the equation. And
there you go.
With that sentiment, it's easy for me to pick national champion JT Daniels. I think. I don't know who we're even talking to, in the sense that, like, there's probably only about 20 people that have actually been participating in any of the best balls that we've been doing over the first 4 months of best balls, right? But in those best balls that we've been in, I feel like you'll agree with me, Chris, that one of the biggest edges has been establishing kind of a gut feel on players who have entered the portal, who have not yet exited the portal, and taking them before they actually commit. Because, like, with JT Daniels, I was very confident that he was going to net out for West Virginia. West Virginia, it was easy to connect the dots, I thought. And before he made that commitment, like, I was getting him 20th, 21st, 22nd round, no problem. I could pretty much name my price. And now he's vaulted into like that 15 roundish area. Same kind of story with Jalen Robinson. His was a little more interesting because it was like 4 different teams, but you could pretty much feel confident, I think, that his stock was going to be up regardless of which of the 4 he took. And that uncertainty associated with his landing spot was really uncalled for, I think. And but now we're seeing him go like round 10. So no more value on Jalen. But anyway, with respect to JT, I think I would prefer him at the price point relative to Cameron Ward. That's where I stand.
Yeah, I would agree in all points there, right? Like, if I'm taking it just straight up based on the criteria you gave, I'm taking Cameron Ward reluctantly. If I'm taking it based on ADP, it's JT Daniels. Like, he just doesn't give enough. Not that Cameron Ward is a runner, but JT Daniels is like a negative runner. And, like, he'd have to have like a monster passing season, right? Probably not going to happen, but it's possible. It's the Big 12. And then just in regards to your comment about the portal, right? Like, it is very interesting. I remember us talking about JT Daniels and you saying, like, I just love keep getting him at the end, just like mid to end, just keep snagging him. Because, like, realistically, he's going to go somewhere decent. And worst case scenario, he goes to, like, Oregon State, which would have been fine. It's just weird, right? Yeah. But, like, Jalen Robinson was a no-brainer. There just wasn't enough drafts between.
I know. If we needed,
I got him in the 1, and then
I was waiting on him in that one that you took him, and I was like, I'm going to get him in like the 25th. It's going to be great. And then you took him in like the 22nd.
That's just a weird spot, right? Like, where do you determine we'll see it in this draft that starts tomorrow. Yeah. Kobe Lewis.
Yeah.
who
Where do you
decides
think
at
Lou
a
Nichols
certain
goes?
point where he goes,
Top 8.
Is Nichols leaving too?
No,
in the
so
draft.
Nichols will be a first rounder.
There's the two
Top
sides
8.
of the coin, right? Whereas so you're right with Kobe Lewis, like he's the more, I guess, practical example. He's now in the portal, so
Right.
yeah, relative to what we were just talking. But I'm so interested to see where Nichols goes now in that draft.
I think it'll be top 10. Which is funny because I brought this up. I said this to Mike in that like Discord, but like people for the longest time I felt like all I was hearing was we don't like the new offensive coordinator. They're not going to hammer the run. They're going to split it up. And then they're like, oh yeah, and by the way, Kobe Lewis is back. And then Kobe Lewis is gone, and it's like we're all forgetting that like Paul Petrino is the offensive coordinator. But Mike made a great point, and we come from the same school. I come from the same school of thought of it. Like, if McElwain is the offensive type minded, and he's done what he's done for years, like I'm not going to stress about a potential replacement or anything like that. Like, it's just going to be what it is. But Kobe Lewis will be the interesting thing for me because he is talented. He's also coming off an injury. What spots are open? What spots are available is the question.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot less certainty with him than there was with like Jalen and JT in terms of feeling confident about taking them. Like there's a lot more ways it could go wrong with Kobe than it is with them.
A lot of ways, right? Because like off the injury, he's a running back that's older, right? Like where does he go? It doesn't get much better than Mac.
Thompson and never exit the portal.
Or Jack Sears.
Right.
Jack never.
He's still in the portal.
I'm hoping Bentavious goes to Central Michigan and just takes that job from Lou Nichols.
Well, he's just going to take over because Lou Nichols is transferring. So, what's the third one, Zach?
The third one is Garrett Schrader versus Jaron Hall. I know you guys haven't had any prep time to even think about it, so it's kind of tough.
Right? Don't they have a good offensive situation there? Not to mention, like, talk about a 2-man game. Once Taj Harris left, that's all it was a 2-man game.
Yeah,
like he runs at a ridiculous amount.
I think that's the upside of running.
And I remember looking at it the other day, but like his rushing stuff is just stupid. It's like, why would he run this much? And he gets so many rushing touchdowns. Like, I think it's not every day that you love a quarterback that has no real offensive talent to throw to.
Yeah,
but that's the one. Although I like Jaron Hall, I think that's awesome. And those BYU fans are nuts on Twitter. They will come for you. So I am not knocking Jalen Hall. I'm just saying in this situation, I would prefer Schrader.
Respect. Yeah, I think the upside is the rushing, right? Like the amount of attempts more so than anything. But I think on a consistency level, I think Jaron Hall, if you want a guy that you kind of know what you're going to get every week, Jaron Hall's the guy. But I think the higher ceiling is Schrader. But Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few quarterbacks that I haven't drafted at all this year intentionally that I'm terrified could break my bank account as a result, and Schrader's one of them. My initial stance was that I just felt like there's a lot of ways it could go wrong. But, I mean, things seem like they're tracking on the straight and narrow for him so far through the first whatever X amount of months through the offseason. He's dodged not entirely the portal, right? I mean, they took that quarterback from Florida, but it doesn't seem like anything's suggesting that he's going to challenge Schrader in any way. I thought that he wasn't necessarily a glove fit for the system based on what we've seen recently, but at the same time, like this is you can make I think you could actually make whatever argument you want and feel good and convince yourself that you're right when it comes to Schrader, right? So you could argue against him just based on what he is in no way really equipped to do what Brennan Armstrong just did. But this is the same OC that made Taysom Hill look like a golden god on the football field. So their skill sets, Taysom and Schrader, are perfect like the Venn diagram is a perfect circle for those two, which is like the idea of fading actively Taysom Hill in like the 6th, 7th round, peaked his Taysom Hill BYU Taysom Hill before they tried to make him a pocket passer is like a horrifying concept because that's how you guarantee that you have zero shot at winning the league. I like Jared Hall though. I've been drafting him, but when he kind of gets when I have the ability to get him as like my QB3, QB4.
So you would lean Hall.
Yeah, I mean, similar to a lot of stances such as Lou Nichols, I'm begrudgingly dug in and don't really advise anyone to
you don't have an option.
Oh, that's great.
But you love the Puka connection, right?
I love Puka. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're gonna love some Puka, you might as well get his quarterback too.
Right.
Back to back.
Oh, I didn't realize we had comments. Jared has all 3 comments. He put this one up on about Kobe Lewis. I could see McElwain splitting that backfield to reward Lewis. Don't see him doing that for anyone else in that backfield. Okay, yeah, I get it now. By the way, check out that picture of Jared right there. That's got to be a while ago.
No, Jared shaved his facial hair, so it could be either.
I don't know. That looks
looks a little high school senior.
Yeah,
senior photo.
Yeah,
it looks good.
It's a good picture. It's definitely younger.
I definitely looked worse in my senior picture.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Just a heads up.
Oh, so he also says how Katz feels about Schrader breaking his bank account is how he feels about Charbonnet.
That's appropriate for Andrew considering he's leading that bandwagon.
I mean, if you don't take any sort of stance and you just try to play the game where you're just taking X% of every single player, that's how you come in 6th place in every single league. So,
well, the thing is, right. We don't play enough of these.
Don't try to turn this into DFS where you need.
We don't play in enough. We don't play in enough leagues to just take the status quo. You gotta play in a lot.
For this steers to DFS talk, let's go ahead and jump into our weekly win totals series. And Andrew had a team that he's kept from us the last few days. So I'll let him lead off with what team he wants to do, and I'll pull it up.
Can I just start with saying that he asked us if we wanted to know, and I said I don't care, and then he's like, I'm not going to tell you. But the funny thing is, it's like I would have done the same amount of research, so like it does not matter.
Right, like
did not matter going into it.
Yeah, but now all 2 or 1 of our viewers can actually see how your brain functions in real time.
It's fair.
Exactly.
All
right. Where are we going?
Dude, we're going to the MAC. We're talking Kent State.
Okay.
Nice.
Which is like the most straightforward conversation in so many ways, right? The conversation for the first 4 games starts the same exact way every single year, and for the next 5 years, it's the same exact way. FCS school they win by 50 points, get taken to the woodshed in the other 3 games, right?
Yes, they do.
At Washington does not feel as bad as it could be.
Right. Yeah, it could be.
No,
but when they scheduled that, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're licking their chops. They're like, ooh, 2 milli.
Hold on. They get at Washington, at Oklahoma, and at Georgia. They couldn't even swing one of those at home.
There's no reason for those schools to do it.
This pays for the bills.
They want the money. Yeah, they want the money.
I got you. Okay, so we're going to go Washington loss.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the easiest first 4 you'll get. Loss.
Win, loss. Okay.
Do you read Hustle Belt ever?
I have.
It's not that good usually, but they wrote an article on Kent State this like two days ago, and I learned something new about them, which feels rare to me because I try and consume all Kent State content that I can. But their OC is Matt Johnson.
Oh yeah,
or not their OC, their QB's coach. Coach is Matt Johnson. So I don't know. I've heard it. I forget where it was discussed on. I think maybe on Jared's podcast recently. And we've talked about it too. I think that like Sean Lewis obviously is the lifeblood of that program, their coach, and like what happens when he leaves. It's incredibly surprising that he hasn't left to this point. Someone brought up that the reality that MAC coaches just generally though don't get pride for P5 jobs anymore. Like there's been so many failures of MAC coaches going from the MAC to P5 that like it seems like the Power Fives kind of, for lack of a better term, learn their lesson. So there's hope that maybe Sean Lewis doesn't leave for the Power Five anytime soon, right? I mean, and he is, or we can assume kind of he is the everything to that program in the sense that they were the second lowest scoring team the year before he was there, and then 2 years later they led the FBS in scoring, which is just, I mean, how can you put it any more straightforward how incredible that is? But I think it's a little interesting. Like, let's say maybe he takes like a top OC job instead of a head coaching job. So, right, he goes and becomes an OC in the SEC. Maybe Matt Johnson gets promoted to head coach, and there's some succession plan in place there. And you guys remember who that is, right? Matt Johnson,
the Bowling Green quarterback.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So
All right.
Sean Lewis is what, like 29? Guy is like younger than all of us. It's amazing.
Yeah. But they also, I need to dig it up, and obviously zero prep for the show, et cetera, et cetera. But I remember tweeting about it when it happened. I was like at Elijah's like 3-month checkup, waiting for the doctor to inevitably show up an hour and a half later or whatever. And Kent State made some incredibly impressive defensive hire this offseason. I tweeted about it and but I think it was out of the box or outside the box. And the fact that they're actually like doing something about their horrendous defense, and it actually drew my attention enough to tweet about it like 3 weeks after the national championship or whatever. Hopefully when I eventually find the tweet, it resonates as much as it does now, because I'm approaching this viewing the schedule through the lens of their defense, maybe only giving up 35 points a game in the MAC instead of 40.
Yeah. Well, I think they're always going to struggle defensively if they just go super fast all the time, right? Like,
right.
You know, like it's like in basketball, you know, you run into college teams that just run and shoot a three within the first 5 seconds. Like, of course they're going to give up a ton of points. So I think it's kind of one of those things where they probably just need to just do the old bend but don't break and just like live off of turnovers or something, right?
Just improve a little bit on the defensive side.
A little bit.
You've won 3 more games.
They were awesome last year doing what they did, right? I think I only bet 2, maybe 3 conference futures last year. I bet them and Western Kentucky and got awesome odds on both. It was like 8 to 10 to 1 on both. And they both, of course, lost in the conference championship games. And I didn't hedge because not about
too
that
prideful.
Exactly. But I mean, they don't have that much more to improve on from a win total perspective, right? Just that, like, they won as many games as you could expect them to last year, right? Outside of maybe 1 or 2 more. Like they same thing last year. They dropped 3 non-con games against, I think it was Maryland, A&M, and someone else who was just incredible. Iowa, yeah. So, I mean, when you start your schedule like that every single year,
it's not going to be good.
All right, so they gave up. I just checked. They gave up 508 points in 14 games.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we got them loss, win, loss. So they're 1-3. Then they get the first MAC game against Ohio at home.
I mean, what is there to really be that excited about with Ohio?
I think I say win, but
Jared's boy Tugboat's gone, right? And Armani. Did you know we talked about Armani Rogers now being a tight end in the league, right?
I don't know that we have. Did we do that?
His inevitable future from the early UNLV days.
Oh yeah.
But I forget who are they rolling with Rourke this year? I'm so intrigued about all of these schools on their schedule, all the MAC, because I feel like I don't know as much about most MAC schools as I would like to at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a win.
Win.
Yeah.
Then they go on the road at Miami, Ohio. That one's kind of tough, but I think
Note that these are Saturday games. We're not.
We're not to the max.
It's not November yet.
That's when stuff gets weird.
Yeah. Right. So I think they win. I think they get the win against Miami.
Do you? Miami. I always confuse Miami, Ohio, and Ball State because of the colors and like that. I don't know. That's so much of the way my brain works in terms of just associations with stuff. But Miami, Ohio, right? They have Gabbert, right, and they have Hickenhammer. That's that team.
So right, but I think like if you look at the numbers, like Kent State, if we're saying they're going to improve at all on defense, I think they win the game.
It's tough. I think it's a close game.
So last year, you want to know what the score was last year?
What was it?
48-47 win in overtime.
It's awesome.
About as close as it gets. So
that was a Maction game, though.
Yeah, Noel, that was a Saturday.
Really?
Yes, it was a Saturday, November 27th. Yep.
That's
but
fun.
anyway, so are we split on this one?
I'm good with a win. It's so hard for teams like Kent State for me because I just know how good they are offensively, and I don't know enough about them defensively that I tend to just be like, well, Kent State's got better offense than Miami, so I'll go with Kent State.
We expect them to score more points.
On the road, I'll give them a no.
All right, so I guess we're going to give them a win because Chris gave them a win. All right, then the next one at Toledo.
Against your boy.
I'm giving them a loss here.
Yeah, I don't know what it can't like. So I've told you about my infamous Google Keep document.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even document. It's like Google's project management tool or whatever, where you just take down your thoughts. For some reason, I have written in that I need to bet Toledo to win the conference this year in the MAC. Absolutely no memory of it or how I came to that conclusion. But I don't know. Like at Toledo's in the Glass Bowl, that's tough. I think you gotta give them an L.
I'm good with an L. I think those two are close enough to 50-50s that like they get one of them. So it just only a matter of which one it is.
Right. All right. So now next is Akron. At home.
Yeah, I mean, it's a win. I mean, and I think the most interesting part of it is if nothing really changes with Kent State in the sense that they can't stop the run and Joe Moorhead comes in and gets the run game working how he likes to, like potentially it's an interesting matchup, but even then Akron is pretty bereft of talent, and even before they had a lot of their talent stolen via the portal, they were still Akron. So, I mean, you can't give them anything but a win here.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a win. What a weird move for Moorhead. And what's even weirder is I think his wife was happy when he took the Akron job.
Are you trying to give away our proprietary transfer information?
No. I think his wife is from the Midwest and wanted to go back to the Midwest.
Yeah, so he's from like right there.
Yeah, so when they decided to go to Akron, I read something that was like, yeah, and his wife's so excited to go back to the Midwest. And I'm like,
yeah,
but to Akron, yeah.
By the way, I have a transfer that there is a girlfriend element. I haven't told anyone about it, and it's pretty much impossible to find anywhere. I saw one reference to it across everything, and I'm latching onto it as like the reason for how I feel about that player. Part of the equation for how I feel about that player.
Can you tell us?
No.
I mean, I can get Amico on this, and he'll get it within minutes.
He doesn't know anything about college football.
But he's great at research. So do we know, is that the issue? Is we don't know where the girlfriend actually goes, or
why is it challenging? It was like I only saw it referenced in one coach interview. The players, I've never seen like the player actually say anything about it or anything. And it wasn't even mentioned in like the initial transfer articles about the player. It was like months later after the transfer actually occurred. It's wild.
Huh.
Nice.
Interesting. All right, so we got them win against Akron. Then they're off. Then weekly Maction starts.
Love
Action
it.
begins.
So they get Ball State at home.
It's got to be a win.
Win. Good favorable schedule, in my opinion.
Right.
At Bowling Green. I mean,
And
come
they
on.
get at Bowling Green.
The Fighting Matt McDonald's. That's a W.
Yeah. Then they get Eastern Michigan, and then at Buffalo to close.
Eastern Michigan at home. There's no real reason for me not to give them a win there.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm trying to get this sorted out. Sorry.
Yeah, you're very confusing, distracting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think win Eastern Michigan.
So we got a
and,
beating Ball State.
Yep.
And then beating Bowling Green.
Yep.
Is that what we said? And then win.
A win for Eastern Michigan for sure.
Okay, then at Buffalo to close the season out.
I think they beat Buffalo in all likelihood. There's just
Buffalo was
a
terrible
ton
last
to love about the direction of the
And they don't have
program.
McDuffie.
Holds left.
Like, ironically, like they scored 219 and gave up 262, which was in conference, which was better than Kent State. But they were only 2-6 in conference.
Who is this?
Buffalo.
What was better? So what were Kent State's numbers in that split?
They scored 308 but gave up 297
That's so funny.
in conference, but they were 6-2. They were 7-7 overall. It scored 462, gave up 508. So
And it's
awesome.
it's entirely possible that we are blinded by CFF blinders with a team like this.
Yeah. So I'm cool with just giving them a win. And
I am too. If McDuffie was there, like you can think, okay, well maybe a guy goes, he puts on like the big game, but like
so that's
they're-
8-4.
the further they get away from Leopold, or that guy's name that's at Kansas, like the worse they become, theoretically, in my opinion.
So that's 8-4.
It's a lot to expect, but
It is a lot to expect, but I think the losses, other than the obvious losses, so we're saying they lose one conference game at Toledo.
yeah, it's not happening.
So we're going to put
Nailed
it down, lock it in 8.
Yep.
Okay.
The schedule, they avoid Northern Illinois, who invariably is their nemesis because all they do is run the ball, in Kent State.
And Central Michigan.
Right. They avoid them too, and Western, so that's nice.
Yeah.
So the schedule is sweet. So I bet their win total this morning. Do you want to guess what it is?
6.
7.5.
5.
5.
Kent State's is 5.
Yeah.
This is the first one we've been way off on.
Yeah, I think we're CFF blinded to a decent degree, but I also think, the simplest way to think about it is they win against LIU without a problem, and it's very difficult to see how they lose to either Akron or Bowling Green, or I think Eastern Michigan as well, right? So that's
Oh no, Hassan, I'm rethinking Eastern Michigan.
at home. All right, let's take it
By
back.
the way,
Take it back one step.
check out the time for the Eastern Michigan game. 6, 7, or 8. They haven't flexed it yet. They don't know what ESPN network. And then 3 different channels: ESPN2, ESPNU, or CBS Sports.
Dude, I love how Maction when it gets to that point. I feel like it starts off a little slow with the way the games are set up, where it's slow and conservative, where they just have like a couple blocks at like a 7 p.m. and like a 7:30. You can't even watch all the games, or it's like Tuesday, Wednesday. But then they start doing this thing where it's like 3 different channels. The game times kind of they announce them the just the week before and stuff. It's great.
Okay, I've picked our second team.
But real quick, because we just were talking about Buffalo. I saw today something that blew my mind, and I would have never thought this was going to happen years ago. Do you know where Kyle Van Treese goes to school?
Georgia Southern, right?
Georgia Southern. That just blew my mind. Like years ago, I would have been like, "There's no way he's going to Georgia Southern." But
I wasted some time watching a little bit of the spring game. He didn't look bad. Like they have a real offense now. They actually throw the ball, and he was quick hitting, fine against like whatever third string defense or whatever. It looked actually competent. Yeah, it was weird.
All right, you guys ready? Oh,
yeah.
Jared's commenting on our
I'm seeing as much. Yeah. Jared is aligned with us on the CFF blinders.
So he says 8-4, 7-5 with Maction element. That's fair, I think.
Yeah.
So we're all in agreement. The over 5 is a lot.
That feels like that number is going to be juiced
Go back
so
to
hard.
the schedule. I want to finish my thought on
days.
it.
Okay. Let me go back to. Okay, hold on.
I think it's really difficult to make any argument that there aren't 3 absolute locks, and then with Buffalo, Eastern Michigan, and Ball State, I think it's tough to talk your way into how they could be any worse than 2-1, right? And with Ohio looking like a really good win as well. Like 5 to me feels like the floor. It wouldn't be that.
I just wonder how beat up they are after Washington, Oklahoma, and Georgia.
Right. I mean, the risk is Schley dies on the field in one of those weeks, and then
now we're looking at 4-8.
Yeah, like that's in the realm of possibilities for sure.
But I mean, over 5 seems low.
Really low. I mean, not
For
really
a
low.
team that was just in the championship, you would think that.
Like 5 seems low. If they had said 6.5, I'd been okay. That sounds about right. But all right, let me go on.
Yeah, I mean the way you framed it though with their point differential is definitely a little frightening.
You got a lot of coin flip games. All right. So I wanted to go to Texas Tech mainly because in the Discord, one of the topics that was requested was Texas Tech to see. Going to kind of try to knock out 2 things at once here, but it said, let me find it. Okay, so K Hookem in the Discord, as your guys,
Our boy.
Yeah, I'd like to hear y'all's take on Texas Tech. Seems like the community is ignoring the system more than others this season, or just an overall look at them. So I figure we do that with their schedule. How do you feel about that? Is that cool? Good, because that's what we're doing. Okay, so we're going to give them a win to start out at Murray State or against Murray State. Then they get Houston week 2.
I think they got a string of tough ones here.
Yeah, like those first. Well, after Murray State, those next 3 games.
How do you? Let's zoom out a little bit though. How do you think this actually plays out in terms of how the team actually plays? Like, what is their vibe that they're okay? Obviously, Kelly's going to come in and throw the ball around. It's gonna be awesome in the sense that it's just going to be like, no matter what the scenario is, they're going to throw the ball an absolute ton. But is that scenario they're winning ball games because they're really effective throwing the ball? And like I believe in Joey McGuire. Everything I read about the guy makes me think that he's some combination between high school legend and like mafia guy. Like he gives off those kind of vibes to me, and I think that his message resonates within the program and throughout Texas as well. I think he's going to just generally be successful, but I think that there's a lot of different ways that this season can go. It wouldn't be that surprising to me that the way it plays out is they're not overly successful on the field this year when it comes to wins and losses. They still chuck the ball around, and like it's totally possible that you just pick the wrong guys from a CFF perspective, right? You pick a quarterback and you pick Shuck and he gets benched. You pick Morin, he never sees the field. Wide receiver, I mean, it could just be a roulette wheel, but they're still good. No matter what happens, they're going to throw the ball all over the place, right? They're going to There's no scenario where Kelly's like, oh, I'm just going to start running the ball all the time now. That's not going to happen. But I think it's just interesting to think about, like, what is the actual script of the game's going to most likely to look like.
This is
Which
tough.
I guess is the point of this exercise.
Yeah. Well, this is tough, right? Because I
I think there's a lot of people that think Shuck is going to fail in the first 5 games, and then Morton will come in. And if that happens,
have you formed an opinion about him, like a definitive opinion about him?
Shuck or Morton?
Shuck.
This is my just dumb fate of the whole situation, because I just don't feel comfortable picking him where he's being picked. And when he was a little bit of a value, there was even more uncertainty. I have him in one of my dynasty leagues, and I don't feel confident at all with him. I don't know if he's like the guy. Like Zappy worked because he was very successful at a small school, then went to a FCS school, then he went to Conference USA with the same staff and receivers. I don't get the same vibe from Texas Tech. Like we're just literally saying they're going to throw a ton, which is awesome, and I get the fantasy value part of it. But like Miles Price didn't do anything last year, really, right? Like he was pretty whatever. It's not like Ezukanma is back, right? Like we're literally just saying we are just full-fledged style of offense and volume, and that only matters, which it will probably, but it's just very scary.
So the time in the system was definitely hugely advantageous for Zappy, but
there's similarities with
I think
players.
Just saying, like, trying to pawn that off as a reason for his success is a disservice to him. Like that dude, his processing abilities, command of that offense, and like clearly his smarts on the field are like upper echelon. Like there's a reason he was picked before Sam Howell. Like he was picked in the 4th round of the draft. In the NFL draft. Like that dude processes insanely quickly, and I think that plays perfectly with what Kitley wants to do. I get the exact opposite vibes from Shuck. Like, dude, read anything about this guy off the field. He seems like a total idiot, like an absolute airhead. Like he is more interested in his modeling career and signing with the right brands than anything else. Like the guy, and then you see it translated on the field of him just throwing a lollipop pick sixes in the spring game. So that I went through a stretch where I took him back-to-back drafts in Greg's league just because I was starting to like buy into the idea that 500 pass attempts in Kitley's system, let's go. But now I'm having more pause, just really thinking more about the idea that Chuck is just like the dude.
So what are his if you had to give a percentage on that he is their starter, what is
their
it?
Starter at week 1, 85%.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I would go maybe even more confident. Now the question is end of season.
Does he keep it, right?
Well, they're losing to Houston and NC State. They were, I mean,
I could go with that.
Yeah.
So we got win, loss. Then they get Texas, and Andrew is biased. He hates Texas, so he's gonna just.
I'm sure it'll be a wild game, right?
I would think so.
Yeah. I really should have retracted my immediate L on NC State because I don't like I'm not as willing to get on the bandwagon as a lot of people are with NC State, I think, for this year, and with Devin Leary as well. Coming into this year, I think that there's an opportunity to just kind of fade that and profit just based on how many people are gravitating toward that program. But I think it's still tough to project anything other than an L for Texas Tech against them in week 3.
On the road, too? Yeah.
I think
Texas, I mean, it was not an exciting or interesting game last year. Well, it was exciting from a fantasy perspective. I think it was like 73-27 or something.
70-35.
Yeah, Texas beat them. But, I mean, they've had some amazing games in the past. Maybe we see something like that this year as well.
I still pick a loss.
I think it's
early in the season. It's just you're getting the crux, like that high apex of like Texas is back before the downhill slope there.
Yeah,
that's for you, Hookem.
All right,
but then even tougher, Kansas State. You get
Kansas State.
Yeah, I think that's an L as well.
They lost 25-24 last season at home.
I think it's a loss. I mean,
I try to think of it like who are the best players on the field.
Yeah.
Like Deuce Vaughn is the best player on the field, and then shamefully, I think Adrian Martinez
This
could
is
be a better.
this is how we
team.
do this, and this is the
Yeah.
exact opposite way of how smart people do this exercise, where they have their power rankings and they do the thing that Nick loves to do, where he like is looking at all the depth charts and he's looking at roster turnover and all that
Returning
stuff, and like
starters
looking
and
at
stuff like that,
everything
yeah.
and bringing all the data, aggregating it out, breaking
That's
it down.
overdoing it. That's overdoing it.
And
then
you
That's
and
the
me
other
are,
pod. That's the Wednesday night pod. That's
You-
not the Tuesday night pod.
you and me are just saying, yeah, Deuce Vaughn's good.
yeah. He's best player in the
Okay,
field.
a little off the beaten path here. Is there another team in the country that plays 3 7th-year starters, senior starting quarterbacks in a row? Because you get Martinez, Sanders, and Daniels. 3
Wow.
weeks.
It's a great call.
Amazing.
All right, so we're in agreement. Win, loss, 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 loss. 1 and 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dude,
I got
I'm
another
not
one for you.
calling
If you
it-
don't- Hold on. If you don't mind me asking, how close is this game?
Racers?
Murray State's just fine. Just fine.
Okay. Then they go at Oklahoma State. It's another loss, right? It's got to be.
Dude, they're not going into Boone Pickens and coming out with a win.
Right. So then they
And-
get the bye week to reset.
With this being said, we got Shuck being benched, right? Like you can't go 1 and 5 and still be the starting quarterback, right?
Not when they have a kind of a competition going into the season. I wouldn't think so.
There's no allegiance to Shuck.
The leash has to be
This
short.
Morton guy is young and he's a 4-star.
What is your takeaway that Smith didn't enter the portal?
Maybe
He's
thinks
probably
he's
just.
in
I don't think there's a reason to yet. Potentially, I mean, like you might as well wait a little bit, maybe see what shakes out.
Well, the idea, right, the galaxy brain idea that a lot of our brethren had was that he was going to lose the job in the spring and dip out to Louisiana Tech and start there. Clearly, it
Still
hasn't
possible, right?
Well, not really. He's like, unless he's trying to graduate this summer, but I think he's pretty young. I don't think he's been in college that long. So, yeah, based on the activity we've seen in the portal since the quote unquote deadline, I think that there will be some level of enforcement on undergrads trying to transfer and play immediately.
He's as
At
good
this
as gone, though, right? Like what is the reason for him to stay? I think
That's what I wanted you to answer that question. It
the
doesn't make any
resident
sense.
Texas Tech guy in Discord was saying that his dad was like the running back coach or receiver
But he's gone.
coach or something. But he's gone now. There's
Yeah.
zero reason for him to stay. He's not a great fit for this, like the offense, right?
Right.
They have a young guy they very much want to put in, it seems like, or willing to give him a shot at winning the gig. It makes no sense for him to stay unless he moves to like receiver. There's no reason for him to stay.
Oh God, Chris, don't go there.
I'm just saying, right? Like you see all these guys change positions. Maybe he says, whatever, I'm done, and I just switch over to receiver. I don't know.
All right,
So then
let's get back on the
home against JT.
I think we can get him a W. They'll have the new quarterback in, get him in with the ones, and then they come out with the W.
It'll be re-energized after the bye week.
It's tough to give them a win, man. JT's gonna have so many wins on that ledger by that point.
Like I have a hard time giving them a win there if I didn't give them a win in any of these games up here.
I think Houston is a very solid team.
Yes,
NC
you get
State
it
has it's also, I mean, it's still the state of Texas. NC State, you got a really good quarterback, generally speaking, and you have an experienced coach and a solid defense, right? Then Texas, right? You know, we did talk about that. And then it becomes this murky road games. Like if Kansas State or Oklahoma State were at home, I would feel better about saying win. But like on the road, I'm just not doing it.
Right. The only game actually I feel that I would even think giving them a win would be the Kansas State game. But the fact that it's on the road, I'm not.
Yeah, we can give them a win against JT. I think that's coming off a bye, letdown spot after
Off a bye, new quarterback gets injected into the offense. They
Yeah.
feel a little bit more upbeat. So we'll go ahead and do that. Then they get Baylor the next week. And let me see here.
I have a tough time forming any real opinion on Baylor for
So
this year. at this point.
Baylor, they closed the season out last year at Baylor, losing 27-24. So, but Donovan Smith was the quarterback in that game.
Yeah.
Baylor is good, man. They got
Yeah.
a great defense. They have a great typical offensive scheme. Nothing flashy or crazy, but pretty balanced.
They got a good.
They come out. I mean, like these running backs last year, Abram Smith, like they're not like world beaters. They're good players that like go on to potential careers, but NFL careers. But like the head coach was that Amaro, whatever his name is very good. Like
Aranda's good.
Aranda, yeah. I mean, like, there's not a ton of coaches out there that are as good as him.
Right.
So I think he's there. And Shapen's pretty solid. I don't think he's like coolest thing since sliced bread, but I mean, he's solid. He could take another leap as a young guy into another year.
I'm giving them a loss. You guys
Agreed.
agree? Disagree?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Then I'll go at TCU after that. God, like their easy games are like on the road.
Right.
Ugh.
I mean, this is
They lost by 20 last year to TCU. 52-31.
This is the part of the schedule where Dykes should be starting to let down a little bit. The team TCU started 5-0, and then the losses start to come forth.
Then they're fighting for bowl eligibility. Oh boy, I give them.
I don't have I have one opinion on TCU generally speaking, and that's that Quentin Johnson is overrated in terms of CFF. Otherwise, I don't know what to think of that team.
Is he the best player on the field?
I mean, I think he is the best player on the field, unfortunately.
Okay, so
but
the same logic.
I don't know if that's enough, man.
Yeah. So I'm giving him a loss.
I'm fine with it. Maybe we get like this super fun Chandler Morris game of the year. That
Okay,
one
then
game last year for him was just phenomenal.
We play Kansas. If they're not winning here, I'm not seeing where they're winning.
Got to be a win.
Yeah, it's a win.
At Iowa State, I'm giving them a loss.
Yep.
And then Oklahoma, loss. So that's
I'm, by the way, not like I think they lose to Iowa State for reasons that we just saw above, but like that to me is I don't think Iowa State's as good as saying like auto win.
Yeah.
But I think they lose. But I'm just saying, when
when
you bring in a new quarterback and
right.
Okay. So Texas Tech's 3-9. We have what? Anybody want to have another team to go? We have one more.
So do you want to guess the win total for them?
I'm guessing it's 5.
5.5.
4.5.
5.5. Okay. So we're significantly under, and I would probably think they win at least 4, but I'm having a hard time picking which one that would be.
5.5 is nice for the under, right? It's tough to find 6 on there.
Yeah, I don't know where they're getting 6 wins at. Like, unless they have them beating Houston.
I just wouldn't bet it because if the offense does work, they win 6.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. All right. So that's 3-9. Last team.
Let's do NC State. We haven't done a ACC team yet, have we?
I don't know. I haven't kept track of the conference.
Let's do NC State. We already know one of them.
Okay.
An L to Texas Tech.
That's all we got.
Okay. They open up the season at East Carolina.
I think that's a win.
Yeah.
Although it's not as surefire, right? Like I think
Keaton Mitchell carrying his game.
When you have like some older talented guys like Allers, who's been there forever, and then you have Keaton Mitchell, like That's a pretty decent start to upset.
I'm kidding. Not a loss. Win. Okay. Why is this? Oh, God. Wrong one.
Just the worst.
It's just terrible. All right. Charleston Southern win.
Win.
Then they got,
Look at this. Everybody needs to start like this.
Yeah.
goodness gracious.
UConn. Love it.
They might be 7-0.
They have the rare double bye week with UConn. I was insinuating that UConn was a bye week.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Isn't Jim Mora their coach?
Yeah.
UConn? Yeah.
His wife could not be happy about that.
Why are you worried about their wives?
We're thinking within the game, man. We don't think about numbers. We think about context clues and stuff like that.
At Clemson.
At Clemson is fairly tough. I mean, it's just all based around like, is DJU
It's funny because I almost,
or a running back
in that segment earlier, I almost did a DJU versus somebody.
Bo
And
Nix.
I was like, no, we've already done the DJU thing already. So I scrapped it. But
Clemson's defense is just so good.
yeah.
And they have Will Shipley that it's like this is gonna be like the Syracuse Clemson game where it's like 21-10, 21-13, and just this boring, slow game. I mean, I think I would lean NC. I don't know, at Clemson stuff. I think I would lean NC State though, barely.
I don't know.
Clemson's winning that game.
I think Clemson. Yeah, I'm leaning Clemson. But I mean, last year it went to double OT. Clemson or NC State won in double overtime, but Clemson was
At home though, I'm guessing, right?
yeah, they were at home. So
Yeah.
I say
I'm fine with the loss.
I have to think DJU does improve.
Well,
Klubnik will be the QB by then.
Yeah, well, either way. Then they get Florida State after Clemson. And I think they win that game
yeah, it's a win.
at home. Then at Syracuse, I think they win that game.
Yep.
Okay,
I
then
wouldn't be surprised if they drop one of those two games.
You're just
won't-
not an NC State guy.
Not really.
All right. Then they go on a Thursday night, or I guess they stay at home on Thursday night against Virginia Tech.
Man, that'd have been cool to do at Tech, but I would say win. Virginia Tech's like a 5-6 win team at best right now. So
This one's interesting. Homecoming.
this will be fun. This will be a fun game.
Oh,
That'd be awesome.
boy.
I can say L here.
I give them an L here too. Andrew?
Yeah, let's give them an L. Homecoming loss. Yeah.
You got Boston College the next week. You don't want to do homecoming that week.
Right.
Come on.
So
I mean, that's a win.
Well, yeah. At Louisville.
L.
I can go. I think an L is fine.
And then they get the
But
rivalry, the Black Friday against at North Carolina.
I think win.
Yeah,
I think
fair.
going one of two to end is pretty
Yeah,
fair.
fine.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Andrew, what is their
Theirs is going to be like 9.5 or 10.
No, it's
That's
not gonna be that
8.5.
high. I'll bring them now. I agree. It's gonna be 8.5. Let's see.
NC State? We did 9. So this is shared, by the way, for those that are still following along. We have a live spreadsheet of all of our projections, and there was no pre-thought into any of these. So this is,
8.5 with heavy overjuice.
okay. So yeah,
Hey.
it's about-
Public loves NC State, man.
Dude,
Yeah.
I know that doesn't show love, but like 8.5 with heavy overjuice is
yeah.
not surprising.
So if you're betting that, you got to bet the under, right? Because Andrew's already thinking they might lose one of those Florida State or Syracuse games anyway.
There's no reason to bet that. There's no reason to bet that if you're thinking
I'll just stay away.
because if you go over, you're paying extra juice for it, and if you go under, it's like you're just doing it just to do it, and then at that point, just find a European soccer game or something to bet on.
Don't tempt me. I will.
Mexican League baseball or something.
Russian hockey. Yeah. But that's all three teams, right? So we've discussed we want to run through a bunch of teams. We're not going to do it tonight, but we'll probably have next week or 2 weeks from now, we'll have a bunch of teams that we just kind of talk about off air. And we just kind of list out what we pick the win totals to be so we can run through like your Vanderbilts and your
Illinois.
Yeah, teams like that.
Andrew loves Illinois, but
we're not going to dissect their whole schedule, but we can give you a list, maybe 5 to 10 teams. Let's knock a bunch of these out. We'd like to do as many as we can, but that's all we've got, I think, for this week. We went way longer than I intended, but until next week, that's all we got. So see you guys later.
See you guys.